Hey everyone, this is George Soto and you're watching Startups Unedited.
Hey everyone, this is George Soto with Soto Ventures. Hope all is well. Today I'm with Olga Steidl. Now, Olga is an incredible entrepreneur. Olga, first of all, before I just list off all your accolades, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. It's really kind of you to to list all these things.
Well, I mean, it's actually pretty impressive. So, you know, you've gone through a variety of experiences as an entrepreneur, as a startup person. You were the youngest VP at Zandex, named by Moscow Times one of the top 10 Russian entrepreneurs to watch. Poster girl at the Zurich startup scene. Now you're in Berlin. I hear about you all the time from friends. I'll get like Facebook messages like, "Do you know in Berlin?" And I'm like, yeah, of course. So kudos to all those accolades. How's everything going right now? What are you up to in terms of client work or startups or just involved with the ecosystem?
It's going great. Like as you mentioned, 2 years ago, I moved to Berlin, which became my home ecosystem now. And actually, this is the fastest growing ecosystem in Europe. If you look at Compass, for example, research, it's 10 times faster than any other ecosystem in the world. We're still lacking of some really crucial elements in the ecosystem, but we're getting there. That's why I'm there, and that's why it's really interesting to be in Berlin right now. So a lot of my San Francisco friends are like, "You're fucking crazy. Can you just stay in San Francisco and live there?" And I'm like, no, I like challenge and I like interesting stuff doing there. So basically, out of Berlin, what we're doing right now, we're doing two things. We're building a huge digital academy to educate corporates on digital skills, basically handhold them through the process of acquiring the skills from startups. And the second part is really huge space and co-working space, hardware co-working, DJ co-working, where also this corporations as well as startups can really integrate with each other, work with each other, and create this amazing energy and innovation creativity.
That's awesome. And when you talk about, you know, the elements of what an ecosystem
Right.
what it contains, what are a couple of those? I mean, I have my own opinions from my observations living in New York and traveling to a bunch of these ecosystems, specifically in the United States. And, you know, for me, it's actually quite clear why Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley, but I'd be interested in hearing what are those elements from your perspective?
So for me, the most important is diversity, right? If you're not having diverse ecosystem, like Zurich people will hate me for that, but Zurich is not diverse. And that's why you have 4 startups out of, I don't know how many corporations being there. Berlin is very diverse, London is super diverse, San Francisco, look at that city. I don't know who is American there anymore. Then the second part, which is really important, for example, for Berlin startup scene, especially founders with experience in high growth startups. And this is what we're lacking in. We're lacking of this second time entrepreneurs. We have first time entrepreneurs, second time entrepreneurs are not there. Cash, of course. Do we actually have cash to fund our businesses, and what is the valuation there? What is the talent pool, et cetera, et cetera. We can name 20 more.
You know, that's an interesting concept, and I, you know, completely agree. It's really having those serial entrepreneurs who have either done it before and can implement those learnings against new ventures that they're involved with, or helping existing or new entrepreneurs to be successful. So that's awesome.
Totally. And it's also about the cash. Like what is really important to understand is that U.S. cash comes back to the U.S. German cash, I don't know, Spanish cash comes back to the U.S. So building a startup in Europe, in like mainland, meaning having a legal entity somewhere outside of Germany, for example, in the US or UK. And what we need to change is to create this funding cycle that the money from the companies, German entrepreneurs, for example, sold, come back to Germany.
Do you think so? So I've actually thought a lot about this, and this actually maps back to the elements within an ecosystem. You know, and that's right. Like money comes back to America, and we've been sort of the I guess perhaps hub because of Silicon Valley and these sorts of things. Although the Japanese and a variety of other cultures have been innovating from a technology perspective for a long time. How do you think that you start to bring money back? Is it that these corporations, because it's not rocket science that Germany has a pretty solid, fantastic economy there, and there are corporations that can engage in M&As. Is it just there's like a culture difference there where larger corporations perhaps are not used to having corp dev teams that are out there looking for acquisitions?
You hit the right point. First of all, they're not looking for an acquisition. Secondly, they don't understand how to look for them and how to integrate as companies inside their structures. Because right now, what they try to innovate on is digital marketing strategy. They don't really look at innovation strategy, neither in corporate strategy, though it's actually three main stones they need to innovate on. So what me, for example, I'm trying to teach them as well when I work with corporations is how to talk to startups and how to explain also people inside a corporation that is super important. This connection is super important. I don't think, for example, we're sitting in Zurich and we created some hub in Berlin, but this is people drinking beer and doing nothing. So creating this loop constantly, understanding the innovation cycle, understanding how the innovation and digital marketing strategy really influences the corporate strategy.
Awesome. Olga, what are you doing right now in terms of just business and consulting and engaged in the ecosystem? I know you're doing 1,000 amazing things, but what are you up to, and how can people get in contact with you?
So as I already mentioned, like one thing we're building is really the academy for corporate clients that we have in Europe, and super important for me, for example, creating a big network of really interesting mentors that know their stuff in digital, that understand what are the best technologies in augmented reality, what are the best holograms, how we can use hardware. And Germany is the land of hardware, but nobody really tapped into that. The second part is I told you different co-working spaces, and I call them more spaces because co-working spaces usually like this topic like freelancers or designers sitting. For us, it's more of a space where everyone can work together. And if the companies want to really go Europe, and go Europe, I don't mean London because London is London. They want to go Europe, go to Berlin and understand the European ecosystem. That's definitely the right way to go.
Got it. And these are, so just so I'm clear, these are actually initiatives that you're
exactly
involved in. Okay, awesome. So let's say you're a guy or a gal who's sitting in an office in Berlin, and you're like, or somewhere in Europe, let's say Berlin, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not doing it for me. I've had this idea around a mobile app that does some awesome thing.
Don't quit your job. Like never, ever, ever in that point quit your job, because like I have an awesome idea, it means nothing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Ideas are a dime a dozen, I like to say. But in terms of even starting to get involved with the ecosystem, start to learn how to take action towards even beginning to become a founder, an entrepreneur there in Berlin, what are one or two tips that you would give someone who's out there who's trying to actually get started?
I think the good tip is the first one: do it next to your job. Like create this creative energy next to you, next to your job, because you will have a lot of troubles being a startup CEO later. Just don't create the trouble in the first place before you're even stepping into the business. But be open to the ecosystem, meaning meetup.com, the same in San Francisco. You just choose a meetup you like, for example, quantified self-hardware, people that are interested in Elasticsearch, and try to get to know the ecosystem. People are super, super open. They really want to help you. They really want to pay you forward. Just be open, vulnerable, and try to share your experience. Because sometimes, to be honest, a lot of startups don't understand the corporate experience, and you will be super valuable person at the same time.
Awesome. And are there any particular websites or organizations that you would recommend in the Berlin area?
I would totally recommend meetup.com, right? So it's a perfect place to search for that. Silicon Alley has monthly breakfast for people that want to get involved. So Silicon Alley is the organization, and you can search for them on Facebook as well, for example. And there are so many parties, so many meetups, events, etc. You can also look at the Berlin Valley. It's a magazine. It's a printed edition, but they also have a PDF that you can read through and understand a little bit better what ideas are valued, how, and what are the trends really in the industry right now.
Awesome. And if someone wants to follow you on Twitter,
they can do that. I don't write anything interesting there. No.
And what's your Twitter handle now?
It's Olga Steidl. That's all together. My first name and last name.
So at Olga Steidl. Olga, thank you so much. I know it's later in the day there, and you've been traveling with clients, and so I really appreciate the time. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon.
Bye, and thank you so much.
Cheers.
Yeah, bye.